The translation is thus:
give yourself to God daily, keep yourself for God daily, and may tomorrow be as today.
We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father, and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive, and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything, yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Neteru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibilities in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akeru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality. And in our moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Amen.
Amen.
Ma'akeru.
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 MC, good. Yanowe. Good to see everyone's present, your spirit present, mentally, physically. Of course, we want to start by giving homage to the Neteru, Jehuti, and Ma'at. May they allow me to transcend my own personal beliefs and opinions, and may they allow me access the truth in its highest form, that I could deliver it in its most powerful, positive, and profound way. So it is, and so shall it be, and so it is. All right. Today's talk is going to be called How to Get Right with the Divine. Some people will say how to get right with God. We still have this conversation that go on in our community, which is a small matter to me because we're people of principles. We don't entrap ourselves in language. At this point in my evolution, I'm looking for the doctrine of unity, how things unify people, not so much how things make us different. Because we're living in a day and time where you're going to need to see how you can unify with people, not how you could separate. And we can't afford little small trivialities that sometimes our religious or some of our cultural traditions bring to the surface. That's really a small thing at the end of the day, because all our elders and masters was telling us to put black first, right? So, how to get right with the divine. Some people see divine as God, and when people think of God, some people see it as this consciousness or this intelligence that exists outside of themselves, but somehow still permeates us. And others believe, or others teach, as well as believe, that it's an impersonal force, that it permeates everything, but it's impersonal, and that it doesn't have a personality. So sometimes we find ourselves in this challenge with what is it? Sometimes many of us find ourselves with people in our own tradition speaking double speak about it. You know, y'all seen Star Wars before, Yoda, right? May the force be with you. You know, they're talking about God, but they're talking about it in an impersonal sense. So if you're in the Taoism, they call it the Great Way. They say it's just the way. You're either in tune with the way or you're not in tune with the way. It's still another version of a creator type of concept, or some type of intelligence that's moving things, because they have an oracle also. So if you have an oracle that's teaching you about patterns and how things are going to play out, that's signifying that there's some type of intelligence that's guiding things. So they'll be like, may the force be with you, or the force is strong in this one. So a religious person would say this person is a godly person, but this person is a very spiritual person. But as you mature on your spiritual path, you'll see that two things can be true at the same time. So it's an impersonal force, meaning that it's beyond our comprehension. But under certain circumstances, you do see that it has personality and that it does communicate. How do we determine if it speaks to us or is it just something in our own head? It actually comes down to the individual that's going to determine if God or the so-called Most High speaks to you, or are you just bugging in your own head? We all understand both the right and left hemispheres of the brain, correct? You know, you're never just totally right brain, right? So we can't go, oh, Africans are a right brain and Europeans are left brain. You can't. That would be asymmetrical. You're still both using both at the same time. You might favor one side or one interpretation of things over the other, but the brain works together. So the way human evolution evolved, that coincides with science, way back over 100,000 years ago, human beings were predominantly right brain. And as a result of being predominantly right brain, that's receptive. That's feminine, not female. Feminine means receptive. So you have the people, so imagine a time with no buildings, no cell phones, no things that's getting in the way with your connection to the source. Those people actually heard God. Those people actually heard voices. They heard their ancestors. There was nobody to say that it wasn't true. And so when they heard the voices and stuff and telling them to do things and they did it and it worked, that was science enough for them. How did they know those things about the plants? Did you know plants speak? If you ever been on the retreat at night and you go out in the bush at night, you'll hear that. And that spooks a lot of people out, but the plants are actually speaking, and some cultures were skilled at learning how to listen to those things, and that's how a lot of so-called spiritual sciences came into being, which some people are trying to say is pseudo now, but all so-called science come from these so-called pseudoscience. It's just a different interpretation or explanation of the same thing. And now, right now, where we're at with technology, microphones and iPhones, AI, we're in the left hemisphere of the brain, predominantly. So that's the self-God concept. That means logic. If I can't see it, taste it, smell it, it don't exist. I can only do what makes sense. You got to show me proof of everything. That's where we're at. So we're at the self-divinity phase, the self-God phase. So that's the thing that determines. Yeah, so the right brain people feel like the Most High is the intelligence that actually loves you, intercedes on your behalf, and even metes out punishment according to you being in the law or not, or outside of the law. And those who believe it as an impersonal force believe you're either in tune with it or you're not in tune with it. But based off of how your brain is working and how you're wired is going to determine what your experience is going to be. So now, what do we say? Speak ma'at, do ma'at. She is mighty, she endures. Her value lies in the hands of those who know how to use her. That's what we say at Hinek Ma'at. That's how we start the whole ceremony. Speak ma'at, do ma'at. She is mighty, she endures. Her value lies in the hands of those who know how to use her. Ma'at leads to sacredness, so that she could be turned into an it according to the laws of the language. Speak ma'at, do ma'at. It is mighty, it endures. Its value lies in the hands of those who know how to use it. You see, that's both a right and left brain understanding. So the left brain is like, it's not a person, it's not a thing. You're like, okay, it's it. It's the way, because Ma'at is the great way. The point is, her value lies in the hands of those who know how to use her. That's peculiar, because we like to see ourselves as the fathers and mothers of civilization, yet here's the culture that laid the foundation to the understanding of Ma'at that we believe that the Hebrews got their Torah from. And here they are saying its value lies in the hands of those who know how to use it, which implies that everybody didn't know how to use it. So that kind of goes contrary to the way some people teach that everybody was walking around gods and goddesses and knew everything and did everything right. So there was clearly there was levels of understanding. Ma'at is levels, Ma'at is layers. Some layers could seem to contradict. there could be considered contraindications about Ma'at. Watch this. We say, as above what?
So below.
As within.
So without.
That's called inversion. So now when I look into the mirror, so what hand is this?
The right.
Right. So when I look into the mirror, what hand is that? Showing me that.
The left side.
And that's called a what? So is that image negative? Is it purposely contradicting it? It's just another vantage point of the same reality. So that's why you notice we keep having this conversation of Ma'at all year. Ma'at is the next through of the year, so we can only afford to go deeper and deeper on what it means outside of the regular 7 cardinal virtues. So that's a reflection. So it's not wrong from the vantage point of that image is like, why is he got his right hand up? So it's this thing that we have to go over with a magnifying glass to see what it is and what it is not, what's its connections, what's its layers. Is it really contradicting, or is it just order of a higher level? As above, so below. In metaphysics, that symbolizes a pyramid facing, a triangle facing up, and a triangle facing down. A triangle facing up or a triangle facing down. What is that called when you bring together 2 triangles? Triangle up, triangle down. He said a star, but I'm looking for something that starts with an H. Hexagram. So it's pointing up and one pointing down. One could be pointing left, one could be pointing right. 6 sides, 6 points is a hexagram. That's hex in Greek. The most famous interpretation of it is a 6-pointed star, where one triangle is pointing up and the other is pointing down, and it's kind of superimposed over one another. And the Jews, they interlock it. That's as above, so below. That's the principle of inversion. That's the principle of reflection. That's how you bind heavenly energy to earthly energy. In African traditions, that's called a shrine. How you enshrine heavenly energy into earthly energy, bind heavenly energy into earthly energy, that's called a shrine. In African ATR, a thing could be a shrine, not necessarily just a table. A thing could be a shrine, something that's charged to bind heavenly energy on earth. So that 6-pointed star in an African sense is a shrine because it binds heavenly energy with earthly energy. When you're doing certain meditations in yoga, in them postures, that's binding heavenly energy with earthly energy. The shrine is called Kera in Metonetta. So we're talking about the layers of my inversion, reflection. So we'll have a principle like no killing. We shouldn't kill. Killing is wrong, right? But is it wrong under all circumstances?
Nope.
Okay. I thought y'all was going to be goofy on that. No, you must not kill under any circumstances. So self-preservation is the example. Even in self-preservation, you're not always, a person might not be trying to kill somebody. That death could be the result of you protecting yourself or you being accosted. In the Kemetic tradition, some found that out the hard way. Y'all heard of Akhenaten, right? Remember, he elevated Aten. They call him the so-called father of monotheism, so-called. And the other Neteru, they still were there. He just emphasized that one Neteru overall. So what happened is he got too mystical. He became a sage, and that's not always the best thing if you're the leader of a nation. So what happened is he got so disconnected with the earthly reality that he started neglecting his duties as leader of the nation. So other nations were attacking. So as a leader, as a king, or as a chief, you can't promise never to kill. But he got on that, everything is one with the Creator. Don't you see? You're like, nigga, they coming at the door. It's okay. Oxen to take care of it. You're like, how many lifetimes is that gonna take? Because remember, death is an illusion. You're always gonna exist, but like, are we really trying to go out like that now? So, according to some rumors, they had to get him up out of here because he failed to make decisions to protect the nation. Even in some of the Hindu mythology, I think Krishna was coming through slaying people. And he was like, Krishna, why are you slaying people and such and such? And he broke it down like he said he's freeing souls. Because these particular people at this place and time were in the way of divine order. So death in that sense was an illusion. We're not killing nobody. Now y'all see what Sekhmet was doing? You're not killing no fools. You're just freeing them from messing up the divine order. Because remember, they was disrespecting Ra. They're like, oh, Ra's old enough. That's what we're talking now. Oh, there ain't no God. I'm God. And where was your God on the slave ships? And that's that talk. So that now we sound like a Christian. That's signifying the end of times. It's fertile ground for that type of thing, that type of awakening. Remember, we're living in a day and time that every one of your beliefs is going to be tested. It's going to leave no stone unturned. Every crevice in your soul will have to be inspected to see if you actually are living your truth. And that's what we're talking about, how to get right with the divine. So, what about anger? It's impossible never to be angry, right? Do you believe there's a such thing as justified anger?
Yes, it is.
Of course. So you see, Ma'at is not rigid rules. So it's going to take some type of intelligence. It's going to take some type of intuition to see how Ma'at is supposed to be meted out for certain circumstances. So when people steal people's land and resources and sell it back to you as a form of vacation packages and tours, isn't that a reason to be justified in your anger? No disrespect to the people that go on tours, but isn't that what they do? They usurp, they done took the islands from us, they done took many parts of the continent from us, and they sell us vacation packages and tour packages for us to see our own ancestry. And then you can't even walk about freely. You can't take a picture, you can't pray, and you got to go with their tour guides, and you got to cut side deals and be paying people payola. That's the reason to have justified anger. Justified anger could come about when people besmirch your name. Have you ever experienced when people besmirch your name because they were upset with you? And then when that time passed, they got over it and then they cool with you, but you done vented to 5 people. You done set a ball in motion that we can't stop. So yeah, we cool now, but you gonna go to those 5 people and fix that with them, and those 5 people, who did they tell? So that's the reason to have justified anger. So to get to the crux of the matter, so I was watching, I always try to keep my hand on the pulse of what's going on in the culture currently. So we could get up here and we could teach lessons, but we can't teach lessons in a vacuum. So I was watching a debate against a so-called Kemetic scholar with the Hebrew Israelite scholar, and the name of the debate was Ma'at versus the Torah. Who knows what the Torah is?
Jewish holy book.
Jewish holy book. Anybody want to be more specific?
The Hebrew.
The Hebrew.
The first six books.
First 5 books. All right, so let's clarify the due respect to their tradition, because we don't want to speak falsely or half true. So I think the brother said the first 5 books of the Bible, they said it's called the Torah, but the first 5 books of the Bible is called the Pentateuch. Remember, we had hexagram, which means 6. Penta is 5, as in pentagram. So the first 5 books of the Bible is called the Pentateuch. Now the Torah, what is the Torah? The Torah is the teachings of the 5 books. Y'all understand? So the teachings of the 5 books that's often deal with allegory, metaphor, metaphysics, and proverbs. So it's an ongoing discussion about the deeper meanings of what's in the Pentateuch. Is that clear? Now, the Kemetic scholar was arguing Ma'at versus the Torah. So pretty much they were saying, which is better for our people in America? People still having this conversation, trying to make people choose one path over all. So which is better, Ma'at or the Torah? Because, it's everybody's conversation. Everything comes from Ma'at, but we just heard our own ancestors say its value lies in the hands that know how to use it. So it's not as natural, easy, or organic as people think it is. It's not as cut and dry as people think it is. So for us, we have the 42 principles of Ma'at, which we delineated down into the 7 cardinal virtues: truth, justice, righteousness, order, balance, reciprocity. So now we have, just like they have the Pentateuch and they have the Torah, which is the teachings of the Pentateuch, we have the 42, but we have the Seba'it, right? The Seba'it are the teachings. The conversations about the 42 is dealing with allegory, it's dealing with stories, it's dealing with metaphors, it's dealing with proverbs. Same thing. You see the duality in that. So the Torah or the Pentateuch is their teachings of Ma'at, but then we say they got theirs from us anyway. So why are we arguing?
Exactly.
All right. So my observation about this debate, I always have respect for the Hebrews when they protect their thing, because they embrace the whole culture with it. They don't play with the stuff. They be trying to learn the Hebrew, and they be trying to dress a certain way. They try to follow them laws. But have y'all noticed on the Kemetic side, the people, they're only pro-Kemetic as long as they're anti-Bible. But when you look upon further investigation, they're not really pro-Kemetic. In fact, they ostracize people like ourselves who's trying to do the Kemetic thing like the Hebrews are trying to do the Hebrew thing, because we all trying to see what it do. Right. You know, the Hebrews like, we trying to see what it do. We trying to get right with God. Us as Kemites are like, we trying to get right with the divine. It's the same type of conversation. So in the conversation, the Kemetic scholar brought out slavery in the Bible. And you know, he brought up some interesting thing. I think it's very interesting that people had laws on slavery. That means they thought they was trying to be ma'at about it. They were like, we can't totally wild out. We're gonna wild out, but you know, there's gotta be some rules about it. And I know y'all think that sounds crazy. So there was rules for slavery. So the Kemetic scholars be like, see, they got rules for slavery. This can't be for black people. Throw it away. Then he pointed out genocide in the Bible. There was points in the Bible where the God had told them, he said, when you go to the inhabitants of a town, if they come in peace, then you take over the town. Ain't that gangster? You're like, hey, how you doing? All right, we take it over now. All right, yo, Prashad, you go da-da-da-da. You know, that's gangster. But check it out. It also said this: if you go to the inhabitants of a town and they don't come in peace, kill every man, woman, child, goat, animal, all of it. That's genocide. So the Kemetic scholar brought that out and be like, so how could this be for black people? Your God is teaching people how to genocide people. So the people, white folks who use this, they're using this mentality against us as black folk. So this can't be good for black folk. And the Hebrew, in his time to speak, he just said, well, you can't be ma'at until you have a king. Who's your king? There's a king that was supposed to establish ma'at. So who's your king? Is your king Joe Biden? So what was interesting, because he was breaking down Kemetic teachings that the brother did not adhere to, but the brother was trying to break down teachings that the Hebrew had to adhere to. And the onus was on him to explain that, but the point is he was living the culture. That was his responsibility to try to bring some understanding to it. But what about the guy? So what's up with the king thing? What's up with the ma'at thing? It says you can't even be Kemetic if the king didn't establish ma'at. So how are you telling us to live this ma'at thing and y'all don't even got a king? So you're not even following your own tradition. He's like, get this fool out of here. He's like, I'm more Kemetic than him. I was like, interesting. But, all right, so we spoke about slavery in the Bible and we spoke about genocide in the Bible. Now, it's a slippery slope having that conversation, because people get on their moral police thing. He said, throw it out because there's evidence of slavery and there's evidence of genocide in the Bible. But have not our own people committed atrocities against one another?
Absolutely.
Do y'all remember the last time I got up here and I spoke and said when Narmer established the unification of Kemet, that was on violence. That wasn't on peace. Remember the Narmer Palak? He took heads and penises. He's like, these fools got balls to think that they're going to go against the divine order that I'm setting up. So based off of that logic, since slavery and genocide is in the Bible, but this is black on black crime at the beginning of an empire. So we got to throw Kemet out too, based off of that logic. You see how it becomes a slippery slope when you go tit for tat? What about West Africans knowingly and unknowingly putting us into slavery? But remember, the Hebrews had laws of slavery in their Bible, right? That's unacceptable. But the West Africans had laws about slavery too. They called it indentured servitude. They'd be like, all right, we beat y'all in the war. Your men and your women got to work for us, and after 15 years, we'll let you go. But that's rules of slavery. Same thing. So do we got to give up our West African heritage because they have rules? You see how this gets tricky. So if we follow this logic, then nobody should be having anything to do with anything, and that becomes the beginning of narcissism. You can't tell nobody nothing because you wasn't perfect. So now I ask you a question, are you better off now, or are you a better version of yourself now than you were 10 years ago? Are you a better version of yourself today than you were 4 years ago? So you see, this thing is always about improvement. So when we're looking at the Hebrew tradition and we're looking at the African tradition and the Kemetic tradition, we're seeing the evolution and the growth and the improvement of the people, right? So those things, that history is there for us to learn lessons from, what to do or what we can do and what we can take and what we shouldn't take, right? So why are we still arguing? So based off of that, what about Malik El-Haj-Shabazz? Who was that? So should we cancel him just because he was Detroit Red before he? Remember that, he was a pimp. Well, I can't follow no man who pimped black women and white women and women just, I can't follow him. You'd be like, but it's Malik El-Haj-Shabazz, he's one of our greatest workers. No, I can't get with nobody who pimped some women. But ain't that how we be thinking now? Like, no, you did evil 100 years ago, then it cancels all the good that you've done. What about Maya Angelou? Do y'all know she was a prostitute? Do you know she was a madam?
Yeah.
That's a female version of a pimp. You can't follow it. Cancel it. Go out there with the Malcolm X in the garbage. And you start running out of leaders after a while. Start running out of leaders after a while. Those are two of the most articulate people we produce. So I still can't believe we're having this debate or the discussion about which path is best for us. We're trying to make people choose, because all of our scholars, whether they're West African scholars or cultural scholars or whatever, so was it Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Van Silverman, they all connected us directly or indirectly to all these debate topics that we're talking about. Dr. Ben has, you don't have that picture up here anymore. Don't he have a book called We the Black Hebrews? Do we? He has a book called We the Black Hebrews, so he did a whole thick book about we're Hebrews. So why are we arguing? He aligned himself with that at one point in his life. And when he passed, he was a Muslim. He was all over the place. And I don't know if at any point did he ever align with the Kemetic tradition. He did it justice on paper. He said, we the Black Hebrews, they all taught us that we were Moors too. So all of us participated in this Moorish thing. All of us at some point, our ancestry directly or indirectly had something to do with the Hebrew thing, something to do with Islam, something to do with Kemet. So why are we still having this debate about one path being better than the other, when the reality is we're diverse people, right? And with the diverse people, we're going to have diverse interpretations of the divine, correct? At least that's what we say. Don't we all say, oh, it's all one source, we just call it different names, right? Why are we arguing then? What's all the insults about if it's one source? So we're not going to have a Messiah. So when you have people like me or Jabari get up in front of us, everybody's looking for us to be the next Messiah, the next Elijah Muhammad, the next Marcus Garvey. That's over. Because we already know what it is that we need to do. When those individuals came, we was kind of game goofy as a people. We didn't know how to, we were just coming off not knowing how to read and all of that. So to be talking about the black man as God and the circumference of the earth, that was sounding amazing at that point. Now that's regular Sunday afternoon conversations. They looking, they laugh, snickering, and you wear African medallion on your neck. You look, you still on that? That's old, from the 80s. So everything that we said we were, everybody, you notice everybody's divorcing from it now. So Africa was, we was always over here. What you talking about, Africa? We ain't Kemetic. Now they want to make Kemet white again. So what we need to be reminded of is universal codes of order.
Yes.
So if a Kemite, a Moor, Ifa, Santeria, any tradition really practice the highest tenets of their religion or their practice, will we really be going at each other?
Not at all.
It would look very similar if that's the God source. So if it's either not the God source or it's that thing called the devil that's got us all turning on one another. And I don't, we don't align ourselves with the belief of the devil. So as I know, all those systems teach about fasting, right? In one form or another, all of them teach some type of form of meditation, right? We're talking about deep thought, contemplation, or just opening yourself up. All of the traditions got some form of prayer, right? So we have fasting, meditation, we have all of the systems talk about spiritual cleansing. So what is the problem?
They're not doing what they're saying.
She said they're not doing what they're saying. I agree. How can people claim these things but get off code and out of character and disrespect the sacred beliefs of the next man or the next woman? Like, I went into the Jamaican restaurant about a month ago, out my way in Plainfield, and I saw Kurt Head in there. I'm just like, yo, what you doing out my way? And guess who he was eating dinner with? He was eating dinner with some strange white woman with blonde hair. No, he was sharing a meal with a Hebrew Israelite.
Okay.
Brother that's a good friend of his that he worked with, that he speaks to several times a week, maybe like he does myself. That Hebrew Israelite is associated with one of the Hebrew Israelites that goes hard against us as a Kemite. And he has rank in that system. So he's next to the cats that's out there disrespecting the cats, a lot of the cats that be going against Jabari, that he's part of that clique. But he's at a Jamaican restaurant with my Kurt Head. That means they got over the petty stuff. That there's a whole bunch of stuff that they could talk about that they have in common as two black men, besides the tit for tat that our traditions put up to divide us. I've ran into Africans that invite me to Africa, and they don't want me to do the hotel thing. They invite me to their own home. They be like, no, you stay with me. And like, when we have company, we be looking at the clock like, I hope they leave by 11. So here we got strangers telling me, you stand with me, I'll take you, you just tell me wherever you want to go. But yet over here with the FBA and the ADOS, they trying to say those ain't our people. The Hebrew Israelites trying to say them Africans don't got nothing to do with us. They don't even like us. And I'm just like, what's that about? I don't even know these people. 2 years ago at the festival, the African Arts Festival, I was minding your stuff at the point. Remember you had checking out the Diop books and stuff, and a man from Senegal came to the table. He's all, what you know about Sheikhan Diop? Like testing. And I said what I know about Sheikhan Diop, and he was totally impressed. Just off of that, I was his brother. He was like, you need to come to Africa. He wrote me his number down. He's like, you're going to stay with me. He's like, yeah, y'all are brothers over here. We see y'all as our brothers. We need to get together. We need to make this connection. Once again, another experience that African they embrace me more than we embrace them. The problem is, they embrace you if you got a sense of culture. Because remember, the foundation of culture shows code to respect, honor, So if he is seeing us think with the temple of Anu, he's seeing all our stuff. He's like, okay, I guess they got some culture. So he investigated deeper to find out that I really did know. So he's like, oh, that's my brother. So I see what they do. They do libations, ancestors. Yeah, that's what we do. So there's a commonality between everybody. So I know people in the ephod tradition or whatever, like we're all, when you reach a certain level, you don't be about the petty stuff. You be about the stuff that supports the positive growth. And all the stuff that you think contradicts, that's just interesting conversation, because you'll see upon investigation that there was probably something that happened in history, something cathartic that caused something to change, and why you have these different expressions. And now you start learning more about history. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. There's stuff that I studied in Ifa that helped me have a better appreciation of the Kemetic tradition, because I saw the similarity in it. Like, y'all be tripping when I listen to T.D. Jakes, and the man is full of wisdom. If you right, you right.
Yes.
And then he'll say some stuff, I'll be like, okay, that reminds me of something who see it. So listening to his thing give me a deeper appreciation of the Kemetic legacy. Creflo Dollar, a lot of people don't like him too. Creflo Dollar represents Hekao. He represents trying to embody Christ, not believing Jesus and waiting. He said, what did he teach you? He said, get your blessings off of layaway. You like, Jesus already died for it, go get it. You like, ain't that what we supposed to be about? Like, yo, living and walking in your power. That's what he teaches. So when I'm listening to him, I'm getting hyped up. I'm like, yeah, we can start doing my heck out. I'm going to stop playing out here and get this thing. Because Creflo Dollar said it's ours already. But anyway, but that's how it goes. So why is the world so crazy? The world is so crazy because the negligence of all people to commit to order. People are negligent to commit to order. So everyone's finagling themselves out of accountability. That's the real foundation of it. So what about gender? For the past 30 years, community been coming down on black women. Black men need to keep the black fathers and the black men. And now the conversation has turned, and there's constructive criticism on the women. And women are like, you don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Blah, 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 blah. And you know, that's how they felt about us as black men. But the source of the issue was no accountability, right? Now it's thrown into the transgender thing. The transgender telling us as men and women and our ancestors, none of y'all know what y'all talking about.
Wow.
Lack of accountability. Because they feel like there's something else that contradicts their biology. Lack of accountability. The lack of how that's going to affect children. Now they want children to pick their gender. I don't want to get into that, but lack of accountability. Healthcare. So some people don't want to take responsibility of their own health. They don't want to learn nutrition. They don't want to learn the science of fasting, cleansing, vitamins, minerals, fiber, all of that. They just want somehow for the rich people in the government to somehow fit the bill with their incorrect living. Isn't that what Barack Obama was fighting for? Health care for all. Unaccountability. What about the Roe and Wade thing? So there's conversations about accountability in that. So there are micro violations that are cumulative that leads to an all-out civil outburst. Everybody feels the tension in the air. You can't talk about nothing no more. Everybody has all these strong opinions. It's a very polarized society that we're living in right now. So some people would be like, where's God in all of this? Where's the divine in all of this? That question has made certain people quit religion. Because it's so crazy in the transgender thing, and the men and women are out of whack, and the world is just getting, people is getting shot up and killed. People are like, it can't be no God. I just got to do me. There's no God out there. And for certain people, it makes them double down in their tradition. They're like, okay, where is God, or where is the divine in this? Let me meditate some more. Let me pray some more. Let me put it out like, yo, because I need some answers. For certain people, it makes them double down. So in our tradition, we say, Ba'ipu neter, Ba'ipu het. What does that mean?
My soul is of netter.
My soul is of neter.
My soul is eternal.
My soul is of neter, my soul is eternal. So now just to talk about that we have an underlying unity of all the doctrines, when you speak to the Moors, they say Islam. And when they say Islam, they're talking about the black man's Islam, not the Arab man's Islam. But then again, that's that double speak because they told us that the Arabs is black. Anyway. But just to further that point, so they say Islam, not Islam as al-Islam, that means the peace or the submission. That's what it means to the Arab people, but we're talking about what Noble Drew Ali brought to the black man in America. You notice how nobody wants us to have our own version of the same thing that everybody else is doing. So I gotta follow an Arab's connection to the source, so we don't have our own right to interpret what the source is telling us. Farrakhan been fighting that for years with the Muslim. He shuts them down every time. They can't shut him down when he says that it's our right or Allah communicates to us in our own unique way. But anyway, back to that. So Noble Ali said Islam, and that's an acronym. So it's not one word, it's an acronym. An acronym is several words, the first letter of several words creating a whole new word. So the acronym is I, Self, Lord, and Master. Isn't that the same as Ba'ibu Neta, Ba'ibu Het? They're teaching the principle of self-sovereignty. What's there to argue about? What about this one in the Bible? He or she who has the faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. Isn't that hinting at the same sentiment as Ba'ibu Neta, Ba'ibu Het, Islam, I, Self, Lord, and Master? What about in the Bible where it said, he in me is greater than he who is in the world? That's the Creflo Dollar be talking about. That's that Hekao, walking into your divinity. That's Ba'ibu Neta, Ba'ibu Het. So here we have Kemet, we have the Moorish doctrine, and then we have the biblical thing, which our Hebrew Israelites follow, and all of us have the foundation, if we really are smart about it and see the wisdom of it, the foundation is telling us that we are divine. So all the stuff that we're arguing about is trivialities. Even in the Ifa traditions, I see one phrase that gets repeated a lot. They said, we don't pray because we have the power to change things. They're talking about the Hekao in their tradition. The voodoo, that's power, that's spirit. So they like, we ain't begging or praying, like we gonna change it. We gonna get some goats and some blood, we gonna do some things. That's the same intimate sentiment of he who was in me is greater than he was in the world. Ba'ibu Neta, Ba'ibu Het, I, Self, Lord, and Master. So what we're seeing, the unity of these doctrines is that the creators of all these traditions have empowered human beings to manage the earthly kingdom on its behalf until he, she, or it returns. Would y'all agree? Would y'all agree with that interpretation of that conclusion? So everything about these traditions, whether it's the Torah, whether it's Kemet, whether it's the whole do, is teaching us to get in order. Why is it so hard for us to get in order? Evil prevails because the righteous have forfeited their power. The righteous have allowed themselves to believe that they have no real power. So we talk theoretical power, but then we keep talking and studying in books, but we're not really living in the power. We're now begging and pleading, those who used to study at our feet, now we're begging and pleading for them to do right by us. We're begging for human rights or civil rights. We're begging for them to do something about the nonsense and the violence that's gone in our hood. There was a time when it was a neighborhood and it turned into the hood. When we lost accountability or we ignored accountability, that's when it turned into the hood, when it used to be neighborhoods. Evil prevails from negligence. We've made evil sexy. We made righteousness corny. We made righteousness boring. We made righteousness square. So now, if I watch this, what does this communicate as I'm walking like this? Confidence. Don't they teach that in yoga? If you like, breathe, turn. about this when a model walks down there. They go. All right. So this is what we call symmetry, right? Symmetry is a new word for what?
Balance.
Balance is in our tradition.
Order.
Right.
Ma. So now, this, that's called asymmetry.
Okay.
So what's asymmetry?
Not my
Not balance, so not my, so that's evil.
Oh,
That's isfet.
wow.
So in the hood, when
Right, and they drive like this.
Lean it to the side.
so when you see the kings and the queens sitting, they're sitting like this. They're not sitting like this. They're sitting. Oh, that's asymmetrical. In the hood, they be walking like, you be like, yo, that cat is cool. He's hit. He's evil. Based off of the definition, right? It's simple. So we made evil sexy, we made evil cool, and we made righteousness corny. And you're like, all right, so what's stopping you from walking in a room like this and owning the room? You need to feel cool. Like, oh, I don't want to be the straight one. I don't want to be the righteous one. I don't want to be the one responsible for setting order, because then I'll be corny. And nobody will like me, so I'm going to chill in the corner. I hope people see how I'm chilling.
How is that?
So the posture communicates something to people. So if you walk and you sit a certain way, then you start talking a certain way. Even when you dress in certain garbs, it starts changing your mind. And notice how our people are resisting dressing in the garb of their people. Resisting distinguishing themselves from evil because they want to be cool. So if you start presenting yourself a certain way, what it is, you're scared of people saying that you think you're better than them. When everybody knows you are better than certain behaviors. That's what it is. You're better than certain behaviors. You're better than indulging in certain behaviors. So why are we scared of this distinction? While all the so-called cool people, the evil people, all they're trying to do is distinguish themselves. When they're doing that thing, they're trying to distinguish themselves from you. Not that you was cool, not that the righteousness wasn't cool. They just like, I'm on some different stuff. But if nobody's doing this and everybody's doing this, then you really ain't different. This becomes different. When the last time as us as a people all walked with that type of power? When your posture and the way you dress and the way you talk commands respect. That's all the Israelites thought that they was doing. That's all the Moors thought they was doing with the fez. That's all we thought we was doing with our garment. But yet, all the side conversations, people are going out their way not to live on code. And then wonder why the world is the way it is. And wonder, why ain't you doing more? Because y'all don't want to get on code. I need a whole crew. I need a whole tribe that's on code. I can't do it by myself. If I just do it by myself, I'll look corny because they'll be like, what's this dude doing? People post evil for shock value. Evil is sexy. Do y'all notice when people post something about something that's bad in the world, they get a whole bunch of comments, a whole bunch of conversation going on, everybody deep in the analysts of the world. But let you post something about your family, you at the park, and so be like 3 comments. So y'all determined that evil is sexy. Evil is way more interested and provocative than good. You see here we have accountability and all of that. It didn't just come about of nowhere. We're actually directly as well as indirectly involved in why the world is the way that it is now. And that's why a lot of people don't want to come to the African tradition because it holds you accountable. While they got that Jesus thing, be like, oh, it's okay. Just believe in Jesus, the blood, and somehow is good. So how to get right with the divine is to get on code. But there's a difference in what people think the code is. So the code, a lot of people think the code is a bunch of rules that's stopping you. Like people look at, first of all, there's rules, but learn to see the wisdom of the rule. I'm gonna repeat that. There's going to be rules, it has to be rules, but learn to see the wisdom of the rule. Stop saying the rule is something that's there to kill your joy. That's why nobody wants to be religious or be part of a spiritual organization, because it got rules. It'd be like, we dress this way, we eat this way, we breathe this way. And remember, it's a reason for all of it. If you listen long enough, it makes sense. Why not? If it makes sense. So if you know the science of breath, why wouldn't you breathe right? So now if you know breath is connected to your posture, why wouldn't you stand up? But people are fighting for the, I'm just chilling, I just want to chill. Y'all too serious with all that breathing and stuff. Nobody want to sit up straight. You know, all these excuses. It all starts with you. So learn the wisdom of the code. The rule is not there to kill your joy. Remember, our purpose is to build the divine kingdom on earth. Not to be slaves of the kingdom, but to be successors of the divine. Remember, the creators of all this tradition gave us the power to build kingdoms. For us to be the successors of the kingdom. So there's work that got to be done. So work requires order, work requires protocol, work requires education, work requires correct things, way to do things, safe ways to do things. See, this is adult spirituality that we're talking about now, not just the feel-good spirituality. So what is your character before initiation and what is your character after initiation? Some people play this game and they do all the right things, they say all the right things just to get access into the in-group, and then they spend the rest of their time looking at the front door. Like they had it better before. Before, when they was on the outside, they, oh, life is crazy, it's terrible, I need to walk in power. And you get in and you find out there's more rules inside than there was outside. In order to be in tune and to walk power, you got to have discipline. And discipline is about what you won't do. Not you doing anything that you want to do. Do you have the power not to do everything that you want to do? Because everything that you want to do ain't good for you. Getting right with God does not mean you won't go through hardship. That's why people come to a lot of the African tradition. They be like, oh, I'm going to go there and do that ritual sacrifice, do that blood, because I want everything to be good. But it's not going to promise you won't go through hardship. There's several reasons why, even when you're on code, you go through some hardship. One, it could be a violation. You could be in violation of something consciously or unconsciously. Two, you could have a higher charge in them and you're being demanded to come out of mediocrity. I'll repeat that. Because that's the case more often than not. You're being you have a higher charge and you're being demanded to come out of mediocrity. Remember, everybody's trying to chill. They're not trying to be upright. They're being asymmetrical and just hiding in that. So sometimes your ancestors just totally overturn your life so you can put it back in order. 3, you're being used as a medium to bring attention that a new approach to something may be required. Y'all want me to repeat that? So stuff could go topsy-turvy in your life because your ancestors could have chose you to be used as a medium to bring attention that a new approach to something could be required. Because every once in a while, people are like, yo, it's not working. I did what you said, it's not working. How can we explain that? All right, we have herbology, right? So how did somebody figure out to go from eating the live herbs to making the tea? That means that diet thing wasn't working, right? Yeah, yo, I ate the cucumbers and my leg's still hurting. And somebody had to go, damn, for real? You ate it 3 times a day like I said? They're like, yeah, but now I'm bloated. So somebody had to get in tune and listen to the spirit, listen to the ancestors and said, put it in the water and boil it. Because putting in the herbs and water and boiling it releases something different that wouldn't get released if you ate it live. So that was the birth of teas. Then some people say, well, I ate the herbs and I drank the teas, but I'm still having a problem. Like, damn, you know, the healers have it hard. You gotta be figuring out stuff. Like, damn, for real? Now somebody be like, okay, now a texture. Now you add alcohol, and now that increases the power of the tea by 4 times. Now, dare you to say it's wrong. Now you're like, yeah, it improved, but it's a little something still left over. You're like, okay. And then you got somebody that gets the essential oils, which is 25 times stronger than the tinctures, which was 4 times stronger than the teas. Y'all see what I'm saying? So you keep hitting these walls because new information has to come in. And then when the aromatherapy don't work, then somebody has to come up with Raseki, energetic. You're like, oh, okay, this ain't even physical.
Okay.
This is energetic. So now somebody realizes you got to do a little bit of all of it. Be like, yo, I'm gonna need you to take the tincture this way and take the herbs and rub the oil on your head, and then I'm gonna breathe and I'm gonna do some energy transference over you. Because sometimes that has to happen in a culture, in a society, because something new has to take it to the next level. Not that it doesn't work, not that we should throw it away, it's just time for elevation. But it's hard to accept that when you're the one going through it. And the stuff don't appear to be working. But that's more of a cultural charge. So getting right with God or the divine means accepting accountability. The ability to take account. That's what accountability is. The ability to count the pros and cons of the decisions that you make on the decisions that you made. That's accountability. That's another version of the word ma'at. So now, accountability, what does it look like? To have to take account of the pros and cons of the decisions that you made or make, okay? So now, for the past 30 years, I've gone through much things and discipline and sacrifice to be the man that I am now. I take full accountability that my energy is strong, that my energy is intimidating to others. So me intimidating others got nothing to do with me. That's their interpretation. That's their business. Because I like the man that I've become. But that's me taking responsibility. I don't get mad that they intimidated. I could have, man, that's what he's scared for. I wasn't going to hit him. I was just chilling. Why are you sitting there looking mean? I'm not looking mean. I'm just chilling. You know, but I got to take accountability that I'm a tall, big, black, beautiful, divine-looking black man. You know, that bothers certain people. And you got to take accountability. I'm making an example of myself because you got to look at yourself that way too. So I'm going to sit. I take that totally serious. Now, in this day and time, I see people, hey, what's up, King? They use it as a term of endearment because they trying to replace nigga. What's up, King? What's up, Queen? But mine is different. I'm really embodying that thing because I'm trying to do what kings do. While the ones that's using it affectionately not trying to do what kings do. They want the accolades, they want all the stuff that comes with it, but they don't want to do the work to do it. So a brother like me, I'm just sit, I'm not king. Now they don't like me. Certain people don't want to work with me because I'm the sit and not the king. Because every brother wants to be a king, but everybody can't be the sit. I take accountability of that. So I'm big, black, beautiful, devastatingly handsome, and now I'm going to sit on top of that. I got to take accountability. Anyway, that's my genetic. And occasionally I fall ill, and I take responsibility for that. So if it ain't something I did wrong with my diet, then it's something with my emotional state. I'm not perfect. I ain't perfecting. You're not perfect. You're perfecting. But I still say I'm better and that I'm good enough on a bad day. On a bad day, I'm still better than most people because that's how I'm built. What's interesting, the last communion, here it is, I came in, I was up here thinking I'm doing good. I'm like, Vince asked me how I feel. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. He do his energy test, he's like, yeah, you only had 60%. That was devastating to me. Imagine, but I take accountability of it. Just look at us as black folks in America. We gotta be superheroes just to break even. We got so used to the stress and pressure that we don't even know it. So here I am on 60 thinking I'm on 90. And we've normalized stress and pressure in our lives. You ever heard of those stories of people, they be like, you know, you got the people at the mall or something, they check people's blood pressure, and you'll be a humor, and you go check the blood pressure. And they be like, damn fool, you about to stroke out. You're like, for real? They're like, your blood pressure is dangerously high, you need to get to a hospital. But they thought they was good. So it's like, damn, we gotta be superheroes. So we even found some type of comfort in the stress. But we gotta take accountability. That's who it is to be black in America.
Yeah.
So when we greet each other, we say what? Ankh living in truth. Or it's a charge to live in truth. It is an affirmation. But as we said, symmetry means balance. Balance is ma'at. So accountability, to take account, to take measure is ma'at also. So when we say Ankh ma'at, we're charging each other to take accountability in your life. So when you move with full accountability and responsibility, then you will be right with the divine. And then that so-called magic comes through. But it only comes after you've exhausted your nectar ability, your nectar given capability. Now, God, so walking in the accountability is how you get right with the Creator. And until you use your divine given capabilities, nothing is going to happen. Take full accountability to everything that happens in your life, because you're not always conscious of what it is that you're doing. Remember, they said most of the things we do is 80% governed by our unconscious. That's why we meditate, and that's why we try to cultivate quietude, so we can kind of understand that process. So if it's 80%, that means it's the tip of the iceberg. They say most of the iceberg is under the water. So we're trying to understand how it goes from submerged to emerging. But in order to do that, we have to be lived conscientiously. So taking accountability is taking account of the pros and cons of the decision that you make or made. So I'll end on that. So do it for your time, your energy, and your attention. And in the spirit of accountability, always take what's useful and discard the rest. So do our next. Said we go in peace, Kemmunion. Do you know Uncle Johnson?
Do you know Uncle Johnson?
And up, give energy around the room. Bring it into the heart chakra. Let's ground it out in your body on the count of 3. Ground it with your right foot. Wa, salute, shemet. All right.
To everyone on Facebook and YouTube for joining us today for our regularly scheduled communion. We hope those of you who are in the New York area will come out to see us in person next weekend at the International African Arts Festival in Commodore Barry Park in Brooklyn, New York. And we thank you for your donations and gifts that are sent to us via Cash App, $ Temple of Anu, or by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks for our next regularly scheduled communion. Shemi Matep, everyone.